Right. Let's clear the space of any vibes that just ain't it. You know what I mean? All right. Perfect. I think authenticity is one of my life pillars. If those are a thing, authenticity is one of them. And so today's video, I want to talk about the difference between self-love and self-obsession. I think a lot of people these days are struggling with this kind of self-obsession, and it's on a spectrum, right? So self-obsession, it can be being so humble that you suck at making boundaries for yourself. You aren't caring enough about yourself. You're not nurturing yourself enough. And that is a kind of an obsession with this fear. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's still fear-based, but it is that arrogant, boastful, prideful, super obsessed with self to the point where no one else matters kind of vibe that we give off. Now, neither of these are self-love that I think is so important that we need to talk about. So one of the big differentiating factors between self-love and self-obsession is that self-love is having boundaries and protecting your peace, where self-obsession is actually isolating, distracting, and disconnects you from reality. So self-love is something that empowers you, and self-obsession is something that stems from fear and survival instincts. So actually loving yourself and learning to love yourself is actually the journey of reparenting yourself to feel safe in your own skin in a way that you maybe didn't get the opportunity to, whether it's growing up or from social media or from things that have happened in your adult life. We start growing obsessed with the ego persona that we have formed to survive. So self-love, this deep sense of self-love, is actually a journey and a process, and really difficult because we're rewriting our story. We're reparenting ourselves so that we can have the resources and the safety and the security that we needed as children and that we need today to feel safe. This self-love is kind of getting back to that inner child and nurturing them in a way that they need to feel secure, so that their ego persona is not inflated or completely deflated to the point where we fall into these pits of despair, which is self-obsession, and we fall into this grandiosity or narcissistic trait level ego persona that is just obsessed and denies all truth. A way to see if you're really loving yourself enough is to ask yourself, when you're doing these things, are you giving yourself what you need in order to grow? Or are you actually acting from fear and just searching for approval? I think the one thing that disconnects us from ourselves and from actually being able to love ourselves is the opinions, the ideas, and the beliefs of other people. Whether it be other people or just basically systems that we've built societally to uphold certain status quo ideals. I think these ideals have taken us away from our ability to fully nurture ourselves and honor ourselves, because self-love is self-respect. And when we are seeking approval or acting from fear, we're actually doing things that appear palatable, appear good on the surface, so that people around us think that we are some type of way. And this is a survival mechanism to ensure that we can make it, that we have connection. It's actually a disconnected from reality way of searching for the connection that we so desperately crave, right? And so neglecting yourself, it can lead to this disconnection from actually connecting, actually having good relationships, actually growing as a person, right? And we've discussed this before. To feel safe, to feel accepted. Playing a character is absolutely not the same and not as important as building up your own character, meaning who you are, your integrity, your sovereignty, what it really means to nourish yourself, what you need as a person individually. And this is different because some people, growing up, they had certain resources. They felt safe, felt secure in that sense. And for some of us, we didn't have those resources. We maybe had some emotional resources that weren't allotted us as we were growing up. And so self-love is truly being your own parent. It's truly looking into yourself and at your inner child and saying, this isn't working anymore. This is our ability to be able to implement boundaries, right? I think a lot of us who have this self-obsession, we get so embedded in the story of our trauma, of our pain, of who we have to be in order to show up. Right? I think a lot of us struggle to show up or be seen or be vulnerable in relationships. And this is another way that our ego persona comes out, because we're seeking that validation still. We don't even realize that we're doing it because it's just this survival tactic, right? Self-care isn't selfish. It's not a distracting. It's not something that is isolating or brings us to being an even more inauthentic version of ourselves. Self-care is genuinely what we need, how we can fill our cup, how we can come back with a balanced, healthy energy where our health matters and we are getting our emotional needs met and we are growing and developing as people. This is self-care. This is true self-love. Where this self-obsession, it is isolating. Isolating in a sense that when we are so focused, whether it be on our trauma and our negative story and, oh, woe is me, I'm so insecure, I can't do anything, I'm incapable, or the story that I am so confident, I'm so bold, I'm so proud, it doesn't matter, I do what I want, it doesn't matter what people think about me. This is another version without the humility. And I think that's what it is, humility. We'll talk about that in a second. This idealized version of ourselves that isn't actually, this is distracting from the truth. It's distracting from reality. It is isolating from our friends, from our family, from people who maybe actually do understand the inner recesses of your being. There are people out there who do get it, who would understand, who could see that it can be hard, that you maybe weren't offered the resources. And there are people and connections that maybe would be able to help you with that, but we're too stuck and embedded in our own story that we've isolated ourselves from those people. We've isolated ourselves from anyone. We don't connect with friends the same way. We interrupt their stories to talk about what we did, what we're feeling, right? Or we just don't go out at all because we're obsessed spending 4 or 5 hours in the mirror making sure we look perfect before we step foot outside. And this is that seeking approval, right? So your worth is not based on outside approval. We think so, and there are so many people, even on here, that say what you look like, it matters, and on some level it matters, but it is always and always will go back to that energy that you bring. So putting effort into how you look is very different than wasting your time, wasting your resources, wasting your money, wasting your relationships, just trying to look like a certain thing. Sorry, my cats are going potty. To look like a certain thing, to be a certain type of person, right? And now I want to talk about humility, because the one thing that is such a big differentiator between actually loving yourself and this self-obsession, whether it be feeling insecure and terrible about yourself constantly or feeling overly inflated, it's this humility. This sense of humility. So humility here does not mean humble yourself to the point where people are walking all over you and stepping on you, because that is not self-love. Humility here means that if you are feeling these ways through fear, humility is understanding that it is a personal issue within yourself and not allowing it to keep you from friendships and from relationships with family. Not let that isolate you, but actually try to work through those things. It's the humility of understanding that you haven't gotten it figured all out. And this humility works when you're feeling insecure, when you're feeling low, when you're feeling bad, when you're stuck in this story that everything bad is always happening to me. It's this humility to understand that that could be a flawed perception. It is giving yourself a little wiggle room to know that this isn't going to be forever and you don't always know best. It's this humility to surrender to the things you don't know, because you absolutely do not know everything. I'm sorry to tell you this. You don't know everything. I don't know everything. I could feel a completely different way. I could have a bunch of different points in like 5 years from now when I learn more things. And I'm going to have so much more that I could talk about here. because I don't know everything, right? I struggle with this. I struggle with my insecurities. I struggle with loving myself. I've had a lot of self-neglect throughout my time here on this earth so far, and I have sought the approval of other people through what I wear, how I act, or the contents of my speech even. Sometimes I have changed how I talk. You know, we learn the shape-shifting kind of ability, and that is our ego, once again, just trying to survive. That's another level. If you are shape-shifting constantly and you don't know who you truly are, you're not really loving yourself to the greatest extent that you need. Your inner child is wanting so badly to feel safe, but you keep throwing all caution to the wind and removing any of the security that your inner child needs to feel safe and protected. So we're latching on to other people, we're latching on to other people's beliefs, other people's ideas, other people's opinions, and we're becoming an amalgamation of the people around us in order to survive, in order to feel like we're a part of something, like we are actually in this kind of connected state. But the problem with that is that our inner child knows that that is not true. Our inner child knows when things are based on falsity, and it removes the security. It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel like you are being a good parent for your inner child, to your inner child. Your inner child feels cold, isolated. There's a lack of true connection. There's a lack of nurturing and love, and your inner child is stuck being like, when are you going to hold me? When are you going to see my insecurity and tell me I'll be okay? When are you going to hold my hand and let me know that the world could be a scary place, but I'll never let you go? Your inner child needs a healthy parent. And this doesn't necessarily have to do with your parents. Your parents probably gave you the best they can, and if they didn't, I'm sorry. It's a different topic. But people can only give us the resources that they were given. People can only give us what they have, and this is for everyone. Some people have wonderful parents, but the truth is that nobody can give you everything you need in a world where there's so much happening. There's so much changing all the time. It's not your parents' fault that we need extra support in a world where we basically have this online world that so much of us are investing a lot of our time and energy into. And then we have, you know, the real world and the connections that we're making in a day, and our job, and making sure that we are taking care of our emotional health, our mental health, our work health, you know, every sector of our life. It's a lot. And no matter how perfect your parents are, we're not given every single resource that you need to make it. Especially emotionally, sadly, because we're very focused on the physical world and the material world and money and things like that, because those are really important in our society, right? So when I say that your inner child needs a healthy parent, I am referring to the fact that our inner child has needs, just like you did when you were a little baby. That part of you is still there. That part of us that needs connection, needs food, water, shelter, you know, that needs to feel seen, feel heard, be understood, and be felt, and be witnessed, and be held. That part of us has not gone anywhere just because of this ego persona that has taken over, that decides what you wear every day for the approval of others. This ego persona that decides to wear so much makeup to maybe catch the eye of somebody when you're going to the store for 5 minutes. This part of you that polices the words that you use in case somebody looks at you a little funny, because when that happens, then it isolates you even further from them. And it's not realizing that we're playing this silly game with everyone around us, and we're all doing it, when if we could just be vulnerable and open, we would be able to stop. If we could all be authentic and respectful and humble enough to know that our perspective is not the only one that matters, and we can nourish ourselves and nurture ourselves and do what we need to do and then show up, our society would move more effectively, things would be better, connections would be deeper, and the truth would resound throughout this land. And I don't know why that's exactly how that came through, but the truth is missing when we are not allowing our inner child to play. And that is something that is so much more important than I think we realize, and consumerism has made it a million times harder following these trends online just to seem like that girl, to seem like you're worthy, like you matter. But I'm here to tell you it doesn't matter if you are somebody who needs my last few videos. It doesn't matter if you're somebody who could barely get out of bed today. Your worth is not based on how somebody else views that. Your worth is based on the inherent truth that you were born, and we are all just children that have grown up. And every child deserves to feel safe. And you deserve to feel safe in your own skin. And I think you're beautiful. I want you to love yourself. I want you to give your body what it needs, water, nutrients. I want you to learn to uphold your boundaries, even just a little boundary here and there. Get stronger in your own voice and your own power. Slowly you'll get more confident, and maybe we can shift the paradigm. Maybe we can do better, not just for ourselves and our inner child, but for future children and generations that haven't even been born yet. They are worthy of a better life. And my love, so are you. You don't have to fake it here, okay? Much love. Thanks for being here.